Okay, I want you to be so lost in your delusion in a good way. You know, we're using delusion in a good way here. We're not using it like a delirious person. We actually like our delusions here because we want to transform. And at first, everything's going to feel like a delusion. But we want to be so lost in our delusion that we are not even giving two glances at the 3D, right? We can see it and know that that was our old story, but we want to be so lost in our new delusion that we are so unaffected by the 3D occurrences, you know, whatever off stuff is happening, good or bad, actually. We want to just take it as evidence, as information, and we want to be generally unaffected by the 3D world, right? We want to be so invested in our new delusion that we do not care about the 3D, that we're not even paying attention to it. What was the other word I used? We are, I wrote it here, so aloof and so unaffected, right? Those are two really good words. I'm aloof, don't care, and I'm unaffected. And this leads to unwavering determination, right? This leads to unwavering persistence, because if you're unaffected and totally aloof to what's going on in the 3D, it means you're more in your delusion, and then you're going to persist more and you're going to be unwavering. Okay, so this is what we're doing here. We're going to be unwavering in our new delusion. And, you know, once in a while we're going to get thrown off, and that's totally fine. You get back on it the next day, or you get back on it in 20 minutes, you know, and we try not to wait too long to get back on what we're doing, right? We don't want to be distracted by the illusory 3D, okay? So that was the first point. I want you to be so lost in that new assumption of yourself that you are just not even paying any attention to the 3D anymore. Like, you know, we'll get better and better at that, okay? So, and then the second thing I was going to talk about today was the most important thing on this video is that self-concept is actually an action word, okay? And what I mean by that is it's like you can tell what you're thinking about your self-concept, and if you have a good one, by the way you're behaving, right? And I'm just talking about like your general self-concept, like how you generally see yourself, right? In the world, like every day, how you're valuing yourself. And hold on one second. So anyway, do the steps in my other video to get, you know, to master your self-concept. But how do you know you have a good self-concept? These are the actions that someone would take or would be doing in their everyday life that say you have a good self-concept, okay? And I have these written down because these are like really good ones to pay attention to, okay? So the one is you're investing in yourself, right? People with a good self-concept are always continuously investing in themselves. They're like making good dinners, they are taking courses, they're doing whatever they feel is important to enhance themselves, right? Or they're getting haircuts or whatever, you know, just investing in yourself, making yourself important in that way. They do not overextend themselves, okay? They know their limits. They're not spreading themselves too thin, you know, like people who don't have a good high value are like usually saying yes to stuff they shouldn't be saying yes to. They're like yes people, right? They're like, oh yeah, like, and they feel obligated to do certain things, and they're not valuing themselves enough, right? So they know their limits, and they value themselves in that way, okay? They listen to their bodies, right? If they're tired, they sleep. If they need to work out, they make that a priority that day or whatever. Or if their body needs to stretch and they don't feel limber, or they need to, you know, take care of some aspect of themselves, they're listening, they're paying attention to what their needs are on like a regular basis, like, you know, daily, not maybe minute to minute, but like they're checking in with themselves, right? So that's another thing someone with a high self-concept would be doing every day, all day. Also, here's a big one. They value their time, right? Like someone with a really high self-concept is not going to be talking about things they don't want, right? They know, they would know their thoughts are really powerful, and they're not going to be like discussing something they're trying to get rid of out of their life because they realize that that's a waste of their time. Like when my self-concept got super high, I was no longer entertaining anything that I was not wanting in my life. Like, do I want this to repeat? Nope. Cool. Not going to talk about it anymore. Like, I had a clear set in stone boundary about that. And that only came, it was like a result of having a really good high self-concept, okay? So it's good to pay attention to, like, am I allowing myself to discuss things I don't want to repeat? That's a good indicator that you need to work on your self-concept, okay? These are all like really good things to check in, like on a day-to-day basis. Like, am I doing this? Then you got to work on your self-concept. You got to boost your self-value for yourself so that you're not doing this stuff. So they also take their time. Like, they're not rushing. I have here, time waits for them. Queen vibes, right? So like, you're not like, doing harm to yourself by rushing. Like, sometimes when I would, before, like when I had like a less good self-concept, like my self-concept has been affected at times, right? Like, we all go through things, and it can put dents, so to speak, in our self-concept, right? So we're not always the highest, even though at some points in our lives we have been really high in all areas or lots of areas, right? And then once in a while we get damaged in this, in one area, like say relationships, like we got dumped or something, and then we got damaged in that area, and it was enough to affect our self-concept. It's like a bubble of self-concept, right? And when something hurts you enough, it can penetrate that and kind of leave a dent, right? So you would have to fix that. But I'm just saying, like, at times you feel really good in your self-concept, and then at other times you don't feel as valued, or you're not valuing yourself enough. So these are good ways to check in to know, like, where am I at with that, right? So at times, like I said, I would like rush, and I would like stub my toe, or be like rushing somewhere, like, oh, these people, they're not gonna, like, this isn't gonna wait for me, the place is gonna not be the way, or whatever. Like, you're rushing to meet people, or you're rushing to get stuff done. But queen energy, king energy does not rush. They know people will wait and love waiting for them, right? And they don't hurt themselves. They drink enough water before they leave the house. Like, they take care of themselves. If they're going somewhere where they might need something, they take time to pack what they need. They're never like rushing and neglecting themselves, because it's something that I used to do with a low self-concept. I would like rush and neglect myself. I wouldn't eat a proper meal, or I wouldn't wear the right clothes because I was in a hurry to get somewhere, right? It's like, or I wouldn't come prepared, right? But people with queen energy, king energy, who know their self-concept is high, and they just value themselves and their concept is high of themselves, they are never rushing. That's one thing you can check in with yourself. They're never rushing. Okay, so they value their time. They're unfazed, and they laugh at the 3D. Ain't no thing, right? So they literally they're like, I do not care. I do not care what's going on in 3D. Like, anything can show up. Anybody can tell me anything, and I don't care. They basically have that attitude, like, they know what they're saying goes. They know their world is the world that wins, right? My reality wins. It's like another one that I've like set in stone for myself. Like, they do not care what anyone else is telling them. Like I mentioned Steve Jobs, he's like, does not care that every other employee is telling him, like, oh no, that's not going to work. He could care less. He's like, yeah, right, we're doing this. Like, he doesn't care at all. So person with a high self-concept values themselves is going to be like that. Okay, let me see if there's anything else. They invest in themselves, unfazed. Okay, the other thing is they speak up for themselves, right? Like, a person with self-concept, like high self-concept, and I know we're like creating our own, belief system and everything, but you still need to stand up for yourself, right? You're not just getting walked on by people. If you value yourself, you're like in the 3D, you're gonna say something, right? And you don't have to get all like bent out of shape like you might if you were like didn't realize you were in control, right? But since you know about this stuff, you don't have to get too fazed by it, but you can say something, right? You can stand up for yourself, because someone that values themselves will not be walked on. They would not be treated poorly. They would not be like not called back when someone tells them they're going to call them back. They would say something, right? And not in a mean way. Actually, people with high self-concepts are not mean. They're like really clear and like just straightforward, and they have no reason to be mean, because they know they value themselves, and they're so valuable that they never have to talk down to anyone. And that's another thing. People with high self-concepts or really nice people. They never have to be mean to get their way, because they just know. Like, think about a queen. Like, she never has to be mean. She can be the sweetest, kindest person, and she knows people will, you know, cater to her and like make way for her, and you know, stores will open for her, doors will open for her, you know, people will pay, you know, move out of her way for her to come through. Like, she's not having to be demeaning in any way or take anyone down in any way. She is like super respectful. So that's another really good way to tell, like, you're just a really nice person, you're respectful of everyone. You don't have to like, you know, just, you don't have to fight or flutter and trying to push people and do sort of like that, you know, trying to manipulate in any way. Like, you never have to do that. You just know your value and you just say your piece, and that's it. You don't ever have to like, you know, have a fight with anyone or anything. It's like never fighting. It's just, these are my boundaries, this is who I am, and that's it. You don't ever have to be mean. So these are some good ones. I feel like there's one more. I have, whatever, there's some more in here. Invest in themselves. Anyway, that's a good start, okay? So it's really important to check in and see, like, am I behaving this way? Like, this, and it'll really show you where your self-concept is. And then if there's any one of those that you're like, oh yeah, like you can adopt that, and it'll really up-level your self-concept, just behaving in this way, right? And you know, obviously changing your beliefs as well, like knowing you're valued and knowing people respect you, and saying those affirmations as well. Like, it's along with the affirmations. The other video is important that I made as well, about all the things you should be affirming and how to change your self-concept. But this is can be in conjunction with that, can go along with it, okay? So it's really valuable to, you know, to check in with your behaviors and see if you're, you know, kind of minimizing yourself, or if you're like really treating yourself as a high value person, okay? So I think that was it. But yeah, if you're into making radical shifts in your reality and you love Neville and Neville based stuff, then maybe, you know, think about subscribing, stick around, and also leave me message or just like, you know, questions, and I'll make videos about them in the comments, okay? So bye guys, hope this helped.